and buy and hold investor here for a little over 3 years.
All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Leveling Up Book Club. I know we took a week off. I hope everybody used that extra week to enjoy their family, spend some time with their loved ones, and hopefully you were able to get your reading in. The 48 Laws of Power is what we're talking about today. We're going to be going over chapters 26 through 32. And for anybody who's new, just so you know, this is an interactive group. So we're gonna run through the slideshow, and then we definitely love everybody's input and ideas, so we can help implement some of these 48 laws of power into our lives. So let's get started. So we are starting on Law 26. Keep your hands clean. You must seem a paragon of civility and efficiency. Your hands are never soiled by mistakes and nasty deeds. Maintain such a spotless appearance by using others as scapegoats and cat's paws to disguise your involvement. Part 1, do not commit to anyone. Everyone makes mistakes, but those who are truly clever manage to hide them and to make sure that someone else is blamed. Keys to power. The main idea behind scapegoats is the shifting of guilt and sin to an outside figure, be it an object, animal, or man, which is then banished or destroyed. It is a human response to not look inward after a mistake, but to look outward and to affix blame and guilt on a convenient object. The clever knows how to harness this power. The practice of scapegoating still lives today, just indirectly or symbolically. A scapegoat can also serve as a warning to others. Part 2, make use of the cat's paw. If there is something unpleasant or unpopular that needs to be done, it's far too risky for you to do the work yourself. You need a cat's paw, someone who does the dirty, dangerous work for you. Keys to power. The truly powerful never seem to be in a hurry or overburdened. While others work their fingers to the bone, they take their leisure. They will often find it necessary to expend energy to effect an evil, but not necessarily action. But you must never appear to be this action's agent. Find a cat's paw. The easiest and most effective way to use a cat's paw is often to plant information with him that he will then spread to your primary target. Reversal. Use both of these with caution. They are like screens that hide your own involvement in a dirty work from the public. If at any moment the screen is lifted and you are seen as the puppet master, the whole dynamic turns around. There are moments when it is advantageous not to disguise your involvement or responsibility, but rather take the blame yourself for some mistake. If you have power and are secure in it, you can sometimes ask for forgiveness. This is the ploy of the king who made a show of his own sacrifices for the good of the people. All right, so we got a lot to unpack on this one. Now, I want to reiterate, a lot of times, some of us are gonna not feel comfortable with what we're learning here, but remember, this is the laws of power. This is to create ultimate power in your life. So you may or may not want to use these in your life, or you may use it in a different way. So let's talk about scapegoats. We all still use them, right? What's an example? Who uses the scapegoat? Who has an example of that?
Children.
I was blaming my IT team recently for something that didn't get done on time.
You blamed who?
My IT group at the nonprofit.
Okay. Right. Yeah. Sometimes, a lot of times we push the blame, and yeah, so shifting the blame. The dog ate my homework. I have a bad signal. I can't hear you, right? Oh man, there's something wrong with my email. I didn't get your message. You know, Kelly, what were you going to say? You said you're talking about your kids?
I say children do this a lot too.
Right. Yeah, it's human nature. We learn this at a very young age, having that scapegoat. So when you're looking to show yourself as a powerful person, you want to be able to shift the blame over to your people 100%. How about using the cat's paw, having somebody else do your dirty deeds for you? Anybody have this in their lives?
I mean, back in the day when I was involved in some not so legal things, yeah,
Right.
I would have somebody that would run the work or take care of stuff that I wanted to have at least an arm's length or 2 arms length, from, right? And so that's, but that can backfire quickly, right? Just like you saw in the reversals, right? Depending on what can happen there. And for full disclosure, like I skimmed through the chapters. I didn't have enough time to kind of go through all of them, so I'll make sure to be better prepared next go around. But I have a pretty good idea of what the basic concepts of these guys are.
Yeah, no big deal. That's the great part about this book is you can really, everybody has experience in this in their lives. So we've all seen this in one way or another. So I liked about how they talked about using somebody who unwittingly as a cat's paw. So I think a lot of us may have those people in our lives that we know are just talkers, so we know, hey, if we tell them something, it's going to get to the person that we want to hear it from, and they're going to be putting their own spin on it. So I think that's a really good way of doing that. Did anybody experience that or have noticed that?
That's a great test too. Sometimes if you release information that is incorrect, or just to see where it gets, when it's going to come back around, exactly who said it.
Right. Absolutely. It's outsourcing, outsourcing a lot of the dirty work that you don't want to be done. So when you have an organization, it can definitely help to have that person in your organization who's not afraid to go do the dirty work, who's not we talked about last time, delivering bad news. You never want to be the one delivering bad news. Have somebody on your team who's that, and it keeps you clean. Anybody else?
Yeah, the transaction coordinator and wholesale.
There you go.
They have to be strong enough to be the, the whipping boy and okay to take it and just be like, it's not personal. It's just.
Yes.
Fun.
And they, in the book, they talk about, kings and leaders, that they always have these people in their lives. So, that one person who is willing to take one for the team. So good stuff. Anybody have any other ideas on this using scapegoats? All right.
Like you said, man, it's just counterintuitive depending on what you've read or what you've been involved in recently. Like my most recent audiobook listen was extreme ownership. And so immediately, I'm like, okay, well, this shit isn't going to work. You can't have a scapegoat. And so to be able to shift your mind from that teaching to this teaching, which is also really valuable, is really important. Right.
I think laws of power and our ethics aren't always going to be copacetic. They're not going to be hand in hand. And again, This is where, so we take what we want out of it and then we use it within our boundaries, I believe. So let's get going. I see, to not be political, right? Regardless of what side you're on, our president uses these laws of power. Like every time I read one of these, he comes to mind because I'm sure he's read this book 100 times because he uses these and, spreading the blame, having a scapegoat and a lot of the other stuff, keeping it vague. He's brilliant with it. So, again, regardless of religious, even taking it before he became president, Donald Trump as an entrepreneur uses these laws of power. And that's probably why a lot of people don't like him because he does what it takes. Law 27, play on people's need to believe, create a cult-like following. People have talk about our president, right? I mean, he could start his own party if he wanted to. People have an overwhelming desire to believe in something. Become the focal point of such desire by offering them a cause, a new faith to follow. Keep your words vague but full of promise. Emphasize enthusiasm over rationality and clear thinking. Give your new disciples rituals to perform. Ask them to make sacrifices on your behalf. In the absence of organized religion and grand causes, your new belief system will bring you untold power. How to create a cult in 5 easy steps. Step 1, keep it vague, keep it simple. To create a cult, you must first attract attention. Do not do this through actions, which are too clear and readable, but through words, which are hazy and deceptive. Your initial speeches, conversations, and interviews must include two elements: the promise of something great and transformative, and total vagueness. Fancy titles, use numbers, and creation of new words are helpful. All these create the impression of specialized knowledge. To make the subject of your new cult fresh and new so that few will understand it. Number 2, emphasize the visual and the sensual over the intellectual. Once people have begun to gather around you, 2 dangers will prevent themselves: boredom and skepticism. You need to amuse the boredom and fend off the cynics. Surround yourself with luxury, dazzle your followers in visual splendor, fill their eyes with spectacle. Not only will this keep them from seeing the ridiculousness of your ideas, it will also attract more attention and more followers. Use the exotic to create theatrical efforts. Step 3, borrow the forms of organized religion to structure your group. Create rituals. Organize them into a hierarchy, ranking them in grades of sanctity. Give them names and titles that resound with religious overtones. Ask them for sacrifices that fill your coffers and increase your power. To emphasize your gathering's quasi-religious nature, talk and act like a prophet. Number 4, disguise your source of income. Your coffers are beginning to fill with your followers' money, yet you must never be seen as hungry for money and the power it brings. Disguise your source of income. Your followers want to believe that if they follow you, all sorts of good things will fall into their lap. By surrounding yourself with luxury, you become living proof of the soundness of your belief system. Never reveal that your wealth actually comes from your followers' pockets. Instead, make it seem to come from truth of your methods. Lastly, step 5, set up an us versus them dynamic. Keep your followers united. You must now do what all religions and belief systems have done: create an us versus them dynamic. First, make sure your followers believe that they are part of an exclusive club unified by a bond of common goals. Then, to strengthen this bond, manufacture the notion of a devious enemy to ruin you. If you have no enemies, invent one. Reversal. One reason to create a following is that a group is easier to deceive than an individual. However, if at any moment the group sees through you, you will find yourself acting not as one deceived soul, but as an angry crowd. When you play with the emotions of a crowd, you have to know how to adapt. If not, deal with someone one by one. All right, let's unpack this one. Okay, does this remind you of a company, a person? Does this resonate with anybody? Does this seem familiar? For me, MLMs. I don't know if you've ever watched an MLM presentation, but it is sunny beaches and flights and travel and cash and money and glitz and glamour, and it's easy and this is all you got to do. That's what kind of popped into my head. Have you guys ever seen one of those presentations?
Yes, that's actually what I was about to say. I have been invited to a lot of MLMs or networking here, and that's always how they do that. How they convince people. So yes, they always do that, like to show you the possibilities of how earning a lot, but not clearly telling you how much what the income is. So they do give you that a lot of, for me, is false hope, because I really don't believe in that. But I think that's really a perfect example.
Visual splendor, right? They're just showing you what's possible. And then they keep it very vague as well. That's a big part of it. So to go on the side of just straight advertising, I think a lot of this really pertains to that. It really resonated with me to where you don't want to give them too much information. You know, like when I'm trying to, so when I see this, for me in my business, it's me teaching real estate over the stock market, right? It's us versus them. But you have to keep it vague, because as soon as you start diving into the details, right, their eyes glaze over. So they want to see the end goal. They want to see, cash flow, passive income, almost like what the MLMs tell you, it's going to get you to here. It's going to get you to living on the beach. So, definitely not being vague. Too much info muddies the waters. Have a nice, beautiful presentation, visual splendor. Borrow from the religious formats. I know a lot of people who they will have, in the more like 𝐂𝐻𝐕𝐄, when you would go to his seminars, they have everybody doing something active, being energetic, and doing a ritual. You do it every time. Every time you come back from break, you're standing up, you're doing a whoosh thing, and it's a ritual. And then definitely just using that us versus them. Anybody have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think the only other thing that comes to mind for me is a lot of the Instagram influencers that are trying to get you into their click funnel, that are selling educational programs, that are saying, hey, every Monday we're going to get together and do this, and we're going to have a connection there. And they are they're creating this cult-like, sort of following, right? They set up their little grids correctly. They're being vague, and then they get into the detail after you kind of get in through their funnel, and
Right.
you start to understand a little bit more. But basically, going to the point of hide your income, right? Their income is essentially maybe not coming from real estate or coming from any other type of business other than their educational products that they're following, and their cult is funding. And some of them are bold to the point where they're just very transparent about it. And they'll put a screenshot of their Gumroad account or their whatever account, like, oh yeah, I made $638,000 in 3 months thanks to you guys. And they're still drinking the Kool-Aid. And now, and mind you, some of the educational content is of value. But some of it is like, you gotta extract some of that stuff there.
100%. And yeah, this does not have to be something that is deceiving, because people need to be sold. Getting them into the program, they're gonna have the ability to be successful. But yeah, absolutely, you want to show, like you were talking ClickFunnels. I saw Dan Henry post an ad the other day, and he's on his yacht, and I'm 30 years old and I'm a millionaire and this and that. Take my program. And yeah, I mean, that's attractive to people. So now some people are turned off. The haters are definitely going to hate on that, but definitely showing, hey, look, this is what I've done. This is what I can help you do. Do you want to be on a yacht? Do you want to own this? This is how you get there. So 100%. I definitely don't think it's a bad thing. But it's a great way to draw people in and bring them interest. And as far as keeping it vague, I believe a lot of these programs, when they're teaching, let's just say your program has, I don't know, 100 steps. But when you're doing it, you're going to break down the top 10 steps. And then you have 10 steps below that. And then you have steps below that. You know what I mean? So a lot of times people are showing you their program, but they're definitely not giving you the details. They're just giving you the highlights. You got to get inside to know the details. So a lot of people use this one, Law 27. Anybody else have a thought on Law 27? Okay, let's move forward. Law 28, enter action with boldness. If you are unsure of a course of action, do not attempt it. Your doubts and hesitations will infect your execution. Timidity is dangerous. Better to enter with boldness. Any mistakes you commit through audacity are easily corrected with more audacity. Everyone admires the bold. No one honors the timid. Keys to power. We want to avoid tension and conflict, and we want to be liked by all. We may contemplate a bold action, but we rarely bring it to life. We are terrified of the consequences of what others might think of us. We may disguise our timidity as a concern for others and desire not to hurt or offend, but in fact, we are really self-absorbed, worried about ourselves and how others will perceive us. Few are born bold. Even Napoleon had it to cultivate the habit. You must practice and develop your boldness. The best place to begin is in the world of negotiation. If boldness is not natural, neither is timidity. Both are acquired. The reversal, boldness should never be the strategy behind all your actions. It's a tactical instrument that can be used at the right time. Plan and think ahead and make the final element the bold move that will bring you success. Be bold, no pussyfooting, right? What do you guys think about this one? It's like we got Alex in the house. Well, welcome, Alex. So we are talking about boldness. So let me ask you guys, if you, boldness is something that we learn. How can you learn boldness? Where can you practice this?
In your everyday life. I mean, any opportunity that comes up, just being the first one to be bold to speak up.
Right, and little actions like this right now is a great practicing tool, right? If you want to be bold, you can have your screen on, you can have your camera off, and you don't know anybody in here, and you can just boom, go out, be bold, say what you want to say. Where else can you be bold? Where can you practice boldness?
I think coming up with some fun comfort zone exercises to just kind of build into your day to day is something that's interesting. Like if you happen to be at a retail location and you know something is like $19.99 and it's like the Gap, right? Like they're not going to give you a discount. Be bold and ask for it, right? And get out of your comfort zone. I think Tim Ferriss talked a lot about that in 4-Hour Work Week, like, gosh, almost 15, 20 years ago. But he had this list of comfort zone exercises that would allow him to be bolder, right? And some of those included like going to the mall and laying down for like 20 seconds and then standing up like nothing happened and going about your business. And so it's flexing that muscle of boldness that I think is important.
Awesome, thanks for sharing that. Anybody else? Where do you practice? So I was always very timid. I'm an introvert. Hated speaking. Toastmasters is where I learned to be bold. That's where I learned to sit up, speak. And if you've ever been to Toastmasters, they get you. You're doing your speech. If you say an or stutter this, ding, you're gonna hear a little bell. So you're taking those shots, right? You're taking those shots, so it helps you to recuperate from that when you're doing it in real life. Practice. Anybody else have an example of that or want to comment on this? So it talked about if you're unsecure with your course of action, don't attempt it. If you're not going to go into it boldly, if you're not going in with extreme confidence, timidity is dangerous. Where do we have that in our lives where we've seen, like, if you don't go in 100%, like, you're going to get hurt. I know a lot of like snow skiing, right? If you're trying not to fall and you're going slow, like, or skateboarding. My son does skateboarding, and anytime he goes too slow and he's worried, that's when he's going to hit a bump and he's just going to eat crap. You got to go fast. You got to be able to go over those rocks. You got to be bold with it. If you go in half-assed, you're not gonna get it. Does anybody have any experience with that?
I think in negotiations as well, even if I'm an introvert as well, so but I think that even if you like fake it till you make it, the bolder you are, and even if you don't know what you're doing, I mean, people will believe you. So, but if you hesitate, that's when they know that you're doubting yourself. So,
right. Okay. Good stuff. Let's move on. Law 29. Plan all the way to the end. The ending is everything. Plan all the way to it. Taking into account all the possible consequences, obstacles, and twists of fortune that might reverse your hard work and give the glory to others. By planning to the end, you will not be overwhelmed by circumstances and you will know when to stop. Gently guide the fortune and determine the future by thinking far ahead. Okay, the keys to power. Most people are too imprisoned in the moment to plan with this kind of foresight. The ability to ignore immediate pleasure or dangers translates into power. It is the power of being able to overcome the natural human tendency to react to things as they happen and instead to train oneself to step back, imagine the larger things taking shape beyond one's immediate vision. The ending is everything. It is the end of the action that determines who gets the glory, the money, the prize. Your conclusion must be crystal clear and you must keep it constantly in mind. Reversal. Your plan must include alternatives and have a degree of flexibility. Build in alternatives and be open to new routes towards your goal. All right, we're all business owners here. How do we plan to the end? What do you guys think about this? So who has a business plan? Do you have a business plan? So we're always thinking with the end in mind, right? What is our expected outcome? And without having that plan, now things aren't always going to go directly exactly as planned, but you got to have that vision, right? What do you guys think about this?
Yeah, it's like reverse engineering, right? It's like, you begin with the end in mind, right? I think that was one of 𝐂𝐕𝐄𝐋𝐈𝐍𝐆 habits, but then you kind of have to reverse engineer and work backwards a little bit, right? So a couple of things come to mind, like the start with why, and then this is the end goal, and then break it down backwards. It's some of the stuff that I've done in the past with success, or that I've skipped that part and just started, ready, fire, aim. Yep. And in some of those instances, it hasn't worked, even though there's a time and a place for it. But yeah, starting with why and reverse engineering what you're trying to do is crucial.
I agree, and planning along the way, what can happen, what can go wrong, what can go bad, what happens if this happens, what happens if this other thing happens. Reverse engineering, I love that. So I think what kills a lot of small business owners' goals and dreams is that they have unrealistic expectations to start with. So yeah, if you reverse engineer, so let's just say, hey, I'm going to do 100 deals this year. Well, what does it take to get one deal? If you figure out, hey, I had to send out 1,000 mailers, I had to take 20 calls, I had to see 5 properties, and with all that, I bought one. So yeah, if you reverse engineer, so if I had to do that for one, I have to send out whatever 200,000 letters, right, to get to a massive number like that. And then, so you know, hey, maybe this isn't a realistic goal. And sometimes those unrealistic goals, like, they're crazy. Like half of that would be amazing. A quarter of that would be amazing. So yeah, definitely reverse engineering and being realistic with your goals. Does anybody else do this? Do you plan out your plan of attack and your estimated outcome?
Yes, we do that. Me and my husband, our goal is to be able to, because we are renting, we are planning to move into a new house, or because we purchased a house that is on mortgage. So we have that plan that we should be able to move in this year, 2020. So that didn't happen earlier because of COVID, the pandemic, and all that. So we did had that mindset of thinking ahead. So since you work on a cruise ship, so that plan did not turn as the way we wanted. But since we have this plan already, we have that goal and on our mind. So we are thinking through every possibilities that could prevent us from reaching our end goal. And so what we did is we calculated that he needs, even though does not on a cruise ship right now, we work with other circumstances that we have on how we could be able to still be able to reach that end goal. So now the good news is we could be able to move in but and the end month of the year, so December, we'll be able to soon to move in with, because I think we have that a plan A, plan B in mind to be able to see this, or we have that we go for the goal, but like that. So we plan in detail before we act, and we don't make any vague plans. So since we have um, that what do you call it? We have that goal in mind. It's always there. So you always think ahead, because you really will not know any surprises along the way. So I think planning ahead is really good for any kind of goal in life.
Thank you for sharing that. Who else? Who has a point on this? So I love, so she talked about being a house buyer. That's a great point. So imagine you want to buy a house by the end of next year. There are so many things that have to line up. You have to have a certain credit score. You have to have a certain amount of down payment. You know, they're going to want to see your reserves. If it's like for an investment property, they want to see 90 days ahead of time. So you got to make sure that money's in that bank 90 days ahead of time. You don't want to get all the way down to the end, be ignorant of the process, and then now you're another year behind because now you got to get all your ducks in a row. You know, we ran across that in our business. Our goal is we do private money to permanent financing, and that's our strategy. So if we don't have that final piece, the whole plan is shot. So in the meantime, we have to focus on making sure the credit scores are right, making sure find out what does the bank want, and then when it's time, you give the bank exactly what they want. Makes it easy for them to say yes. Another part where I see this is, so we do architecture as well, blueprints. I mean, that's this person, you know, in actual reality, what we draw is what's going to end up, you know, so it needs to be exact. You can't just say, oh, it's going to be about this big. The window's going to be about this big. No. The window's this big and everything has to be perfect. If you want it to look like this, everything has to be done perfect. And that's why a lot of contractors, you know, that's how they work. They won't even take a step back. They're just going to, whatever that blueprint says is what is going to look like. They don't step back and be like, you know, maybe you should do this. Maybe you should have a bigger window. Maybe you should move this wall a little bit. You know, have you thought about this? They're just looking at the plan. So that's where you need to be able to adjust, right? Hey, Elizabeth, welcome. All right, anybody have anything else on this planning to the end?
So when you were talking about creating a business plan, can you go into a little bit of detail as far as what some of the business plan looks like? Is it something that you talk about in the very beginning? Do you revise it every year, or do you have a specific time when you go back? And because that's the other thing with plans, unfortunately, they do end up sometimes changing quite a bit. So how often do you go and revisit the end in mind, these types of business plans, and if that's something that you guys do?
Sure. Personally, for us, we follow the EOS system, the traction system, and we're revisiting our goals every quarter. It doesn't even have to wait that long. If you see something in your business and you need to make a change, you do it sooner rather than later, in my opinion. Does anybody else have an opinion on that question?
Traction came to mind for me as well, and it's hard. I'm not going to say hard to implement across many businesses, because it just depends on the size and the scope and the type of business that you're in and how big your team is. But that EOS is something that's given me a lot of really good clarity, especially on the wholesaling side. Something I've tried to implement in my nonprofit, and that's been a little bit more difficult because I mean, it's not mine. I'm a director that works for a nonprofit. But spot on, man. The EOS is a really good system to tweak.
Does that help, Alex? Or did you have any other more specific questions?
No, that's perfect. I have I just haven't read Traction yet. It's sitting on the bookshelf, so it's something that's the next one I'm gonna get into.
Mine too. It's a reread for sure.
Yeah, we've done it in the book club. We've done Traction twice. We'll probably do it every year, just because I think that's the #1 resource for small business owners. But yeah, I mean, being realistic with your goals, I think, is a big one. Alex, I know you're fairly new into the wholesale space. Having realistic expectations will keep you from burnout. Just because sometimes things are going to go great, you're going to be locking up everyone you write on, and then you're going to have a dry spell. So, yeah, keeping with the end in mind. And then also structuring it to where, like, big plan, like big picture, I'm not in my business. So I wear all these hats. I have to have a seat for every hat that I wear, because eventually I have to hire somebody out to do that, including CEO, right? If I want to completely step out of my business, I have to, even that CEO space has to be filled. So being realistic about who's going to do the work and what expectations you have for having it done. So it's long-term goals, what are the numbers, where do you want to get, but really, how do you want to get there is a key. And a lot of times you're going to find out that you're going to have to change it up. What you thought is not true. And that happens a lot. So yeah, being flexible is key as well.
Cool.
Awesome. Where are we at? 10:40. All right, let's move on. All right, Law 30, make your accomplishments seem effortless. Your actions must seem natural and executed with ease. All the toil and practice that goes into them, and also all the clever tricks must be concealed. When you act effortlessly. If you could do much more, as if you could do much more. Avoid the temptation of revealing how hard you work. It only raises questions. Teach no one your tricks, or they will be used against you. Keys to power. As humans, we admire things that move effortlessly and easily. One reason to conceal your tricks and shortcuts: when you let this information out, you give people ideas they can use against you. You lose the advantage of keeping silent. When you reveal the inner workings of your creation, you become just one more mortal among others. What is understandable is not awe-inspiring. We tell ourselves we could do it as well if we had the time and money. We see that a lot in business, right? Reversal. The secrecy with which you surround your actions must be light-hearted in spirit. A zeal to conceal your work makes you look like you're taking the game too seriously. All right, make your accomplishments seem effortless. Thoughts? So
yeah, I really like that. Yeah, the seeing the effortless one, because at the end of the day, you see everybody, these multimillionaires or that are flashing everything, and everybody's thinking they're an overnight success, where they don't see how much time, energy, and effort has been put into it behind the fact. And it almost it's weird, because it almost discredits somebody. They're like, oh, they worked for 20 years. They worked their ass off for 20 years, and now they finally became this, elite, this multimillionaire. So it almost takes away this special amongst these individuals that have put that much time into it. I think about it, it's like, well, shit, once I get to that point, I'm like, I know how much time, energy, and effort I put into it. Everybody else around you just looks, oh, look, it just came so easy to them, but they don't realize how many hours and upon hours and dedication, determination it took to get to that point. But it's actually, I would almost say it's a gift in itself to have that, work, where they say work in the shadows, and just let somebody think of their own stuff. And it actually, makes you, even as a higher individual, say, yeah, well, I can make this stuff happen right away, kind of thing.
Yeah, let people write that narrative. Let people write that narrative for you. Oh my God, you're killing. You're doing this. You're doing that. It's so this and that. Don't. A lot of people will beat themselves. Oh man, yeah, no. You know how long I worked for this and blah blah blah, and they diminish what they've done. Absolutely, you don't want to do that. What else? So when I read this, kind of what came into my mind is that person that we know that's like totally flustered and they're overwhelmed and I've got this going, that going, that going. Like, imagine that somebody's doing a project for you and they act like that and they're so busy and this and that. Are you going to want to give them more work? Like, you're not. You're like, oh, you know what? You're overwhelmed. You don't want people to see that. You want to be like, no, we're cool. We're ready to go. We can always take on more. Always be cool. Anybody else have a thought on this one?
The only thing that stood out was the secret sauce part, right? And I know that that's not the main driver of this particular chapter, but like you can, and you may have experienced this too, Kris, right? Because you give a lot of education, you give a lot of game, and you either give it for free or you can charge people for it. You can give somebody a whole playbook. You can give them the whole secret sauce, and only like 5% of people are going to do anything with it. And so when I first read that, I was like, yeah, I guess you kind of do want to keep it secret. But nowadays, the way that people's minds are shaped, it's like a low percentage of people are going to do anything with the full blueprint you're giving them. So I was like, I disagree. I somewhat disagree with that.
Right. No, I totally know what you're saying. And you know what? I've had a little bit of a shift reading this book and then a few other things in my businesses that's happened. I kind of gone the other way a little bit because, yeah, I was the guy, it's like all open book, every trick, everything that I know, I'll just give away, complete abundance mindset. But then at the same time, I've had to draw it back a little bit because sometimes you are going to directly feed your competition. Like, you're right, Emmanuel, like there's so many playbooks out there and anybody can become a millionaire in real estate investing if they took any of them. They all work for the most part. They just, they don't execute, they don't take that action. So yeah, I don't know. I've been struggling with it because I've always been 100% abundance mindset, but recently a few things have just been happening where it's like, well, I lost that one. I lost this one. Is that because, I don't know. I still definitely have an abundance mindset. You know what I mean? There's more than enough for everybody to go around. Being a real estate agent, I've always been, even when I'm not even working hard as a realtor, when I'm just doing my investing thing, I've always been like top 3% of real estate agents in Arizona because people suck. They're just not good. Most people are gonna, like what Alex said earlier, when someone's like, oh, I've been doing this for 35 years, it's like, and you're still working? Like, if I'm still doing this after 35 years, like, I suck. Like, I should be extremely wealthy after 30 years of doing something, in my opinion. So, makes you wonder. Does anybody else have anything to talk about? Making it effortless. What do you do to make what you do seem effortless? Does anybody have any experience with that?
So getting more into being the self-employed, running your own business, it just makes me think more when it comes down to the hours worked. So one, no one gives a shit how fucking hard that you work, right? At the end of the day, yeah, you can use it as a gloat, but no one really cares. At the end of the line, that only thing that really matters is end results and making stuff happen. Deals actually happen. So it doesn't matter if you spend 100 hours making a deal happen or 30 minutes in putting it all together. It's all results driven. So that's something to also change your mindset to say, because it is weird to have something happen so seamlessly and so easily. It's almost like I feel guilty if I close on a 100-unit property and it was actually probably one of the easiest transitions. It'd be easier than closing one property in Detroit, right? But to me, I would almost feel guilty of it coming so easily and almost seeming seamless, right? because it's like, oh, it's almost too easy. And our mindset's almost changed structurally, internally, to say, hey, if I'm not working hard for it, I shouldn't really get this reward. But just having that shift of mindset, like, no one cares how hard that you work as long as you're getting the results.
The results.
Mm-hmm.
Think about hiring a real estate agent. Do you care if they sell your house after one buyer? Like if they're like, hey, I showed this house to 147 people. Does that impress you? No, it's like, what's your problem?
Yeah, why is it not closing on the first two people?
Right. Yeah, I have a listing like that. Literally, we've had 85 showings before we sold it. 85 showings, not personally by me. Other agents showed it 85 times. That's not impressive, in my opinion. You know what I mean? To me, that's like, what's wrong? What's the problem?
Yeah, but in America specifically, we almost glorify just the hard work and the grind. And I would be fine with working, and it's just a shift of mindset to saying, hey, I would be fine to working 1 day a month and having the same results if I were to work every single day for 30 days straight, right? So just getting that mind shift change, I think that has a little bit to do with it.
Yeah, like I think about my architect company too. So imagine you hire me to do some plans for you, and it should take a week and it takes 3. And I'm just like, oh, we worked so hard. Our guys put in so many hours, this and that. Well, you're late, opposed to if you hire several people on the back end, knock it out, it's done in a week, it's done before you promised it. What are they going to be more, what are they going to think is more, my words aren't working today. What are they going to want to see? Are they going to want to see that it's late, that you worked really hard, or you knocked it out and got it done right away? They want to see those results.
I think people give you more opportunities too when you make it seem effortless and you get, I got this deal knocked out in 5 minutes compared to 5 hours. It's like the more people are attracted to how effective and efficient you are, and so it just opens up more opportunities too. They don't need to see the fact that you've been screaming at your contractor for 30 minutes, trying to get them to get the shit done. But that effortlessness or the not facade, but the perception of effortlessness can also bring more opportunities, because it's like, oh, this guy can handle it. Like to your point earlier, if somebody's always real busy, I'm not going to give you more work. But if they seem like they're getting it done and they're getting, like, you just create more opportunities for people to bring you more stuff.
100%. If my GC knocks out our new build in time, I'm going to give him another one and another one. Like, hey, how many more can you take? Let's go. We're happy. If he's taking 2 or 3 weeks longer than he needs to, like, obviously he can't handle it. I want that house to go up effortlessly. I want to go next week and see it like, holy shit, how did you guys get so far, And I don't want him to tell me how. I don't want him to say, oh man, my guys were here all night and this and that. No, it got done. So 100%. Good stuff, guys. All right, we're coming up on the hour, so let's move forward. All right. Law 31, control the options. I love this one. Get others to play with the cards that you deal. The best deceptions are the ones that seem to give the other person a choice. Your victims feel they are in control, but actually you're puppets. Give people options that come out in your favor, whichever one they choose. Force them to make choices between the lesser of 2 evils, both of which serve your purpose. Put them on the horns of a dilemma. They are gored whenever they turn. Keys to power. When examined closely, the choices we have in the marketplace, elections, jobs, tend to have noticeable limitations. They are often a matter of a choice simply between A and B, with the rest of the alphabet out of the picture. I bring you our last election and every election before that, right? They give us the 2 parties that they want us to be able to choose from, and we think we have a choice. Crazy. Let's see, we got a chat here. What do we got? Oh, we're saying what's up to Tino. Thanks for joining us, Tino. All right. Yet, as long as the faintest mirage of choice flickers on, we rarely focus on the missing options. We choose to believe that the game is fair and that we have our freedom. This unwillingness to probe the smallness of our choices stems from the fact that too much freedom creates a kind of anxiety. Unlimited options would paralyze us and cloud our ability to choose. Therefore, setting up a narrow range of choices should always be part of your deceptions. I don't like the word deceptions on this. I don't think it's actually accurate, but that's okay. Forms of controlling the options. Number 1, color the choices. Propose 3 to 4 choices of action for each situation and present them in a way that the one you prefer always seems the best solution compared to the others. Force the register. Push people to choose what you want them to by appearing to advocate the opposite. Oh my gosh, so many of these resonate with me and my kids. Alter the playing field. In the 1860s, John Rockefeller set out to create an oil monopoly. Instead of buying all the oil companies because he knew they would fight back, he bought the railway companies that transported the oil. Then when he attempted to take over the company and was met with resistance, he would remind them that they need him. He owns the railway. Brilliant. Number 4, shrinking options. You can raise the price every time a buyer hesitates and another day goes by. Number 5, weak man on the precipice. This is used for the weak. Work on their emotions. Use fear and terror to propel people into action. If you use reason, they will procrastinate. A lot of people use fear as a motivator. Number 6, brothers in crime. It is often wise to implicate in your deceptions the very person who can do you the most harm if you fail. Number 7, horns of a dilemma. Strike quite quickly and deny the victim the time to think of an escape. They will be stuck and hurt themselves. Reversal. Controlling these options has one main purpose: disguise yourself as the agent of power and punishment. The tactic works best for those whose power is fragile and cannot operate too openly without incurring suspicion, resentment, and anger. It is rarely wise to be seen as exerting power directly and forcefully, no matter how strong and secure you are. It is usually more elegant and more effective to give people the illusion of choice. Where do you use this in your life?
Offers to sellers. You can either do cash for this, give me terms. Yeah, I can take over your mortgage. I could, like, you're in a jam. Which one do you want? Like, which one? And I'm gonna benefit from you, and hopefully the seller's gonna benefit from picking all of them. But it's like they're gonna have decision fatigue. Break it down for them, give it to them just like it needs to be.
Yeah, that's what my mentor taught me. Give them 3 choices, right? A, B, or C. They don't think that of D, no, and no, none of them, right? They don't give them that option. So it makes it easy to choose one of these, and all 3 of them benefit you. Model homes do this, right? They want to give you the choice. You can customize your house. You can pick the flooring that you want, paint, boom, boom, boom. Yeah, as long as you choose one of these 3, which is good. And also, when I was reading that, my little sister came to mind. You know, when we were kids, she would be at the candy rack and she would not be able to make up her mind. It was too many choices for her. We needed to say, hey, I know you like these 3, pick one of these 3, because 10, you can't do it. Some people just need to limit their options. Who else has experience with this? Let's go over some of the forms. Color the choices, force the register, alter the playing field. What do you guys think about John Rockefeller's example where he was in charge? You know, he knew that if he went to them and just tried to buy everybody out, they were gonna fight him. But essentially, he made it to where they had no choice. They had to deal with him. How can you do that in your business?
I was going to say, how do you think so far ahead, the long game, that still is a win right now? Because obviously with Rockefeller, he was still making money with the railway, right? He was still making the earnings, but he wasn't getting what he was really wanting to do. So, you know, it's just like the movie, you know, Django is where they want to go buy the wife, but they don't put an offer in for her. They want to basically, where it says it's like, well, then you don't offer to buy something, you offer to buy the farm in a sense. So it's almost that manipulative aspect. And then also a long game change, which is, yeah, I mean, it's in depth, but yeah, how do you do that for your business, right?
And you had made a great point about planning to the end and foreseeing what could happen and going against that. We also talked about the shrinking options, giving them less options. The weak man on the precipice, pushing, using their emotions against them to get them to choose an action. Anybody have any examples of this? How about with your kids? How do you make it to where they're making the decision? And then we talked about, where was it? Hold on, let me find it. Where you're giving them the opposite choice. It's the, where is it at? Force the register. No. Yeah. Force the register. Push people to choose what you want by appearing to advocate the opposite. That works with my kids a lot. Well, I think you should pick this one. Oh, well, I'm definitely going to pick this other one. Anybody have experience with that? All right, no worries. Okay, let's move on. We have one more chapter to go. Play to people's fantasies. The truth is often avoided because it is ugly and unpleasant. Never appeal to truth and reality unless you are prepared for the anger that comes from disenchantment. Life is so harsh and distressing that people who can manufacture romance or conjure up fantasy are like oasis in the desert. Everyone flocks to them. There is great power in tapping into the fantasies of the masses. Keys to power. The person who can spin a fantasy out of an oppressive reality has access to untold power. As you search for the fantasy that will take hold of the masses, keep your eye out on the banal truths that weigh heavily on all of us. Never be distracted by people's glamorous portraits of themselves and their lives. Search and dig for what really imprisons them. Once you find that, you will have the magical key that will put great power in your hands. A few realities and fantasies. The reality, change is slow and gradual. It requires hard work, a bit of luck, and a fair amount of self-sacrifice and a lot of practice. The fantasy, a sudden transformation will bring a total change in one's fortune, bypassing work, luck, self-sacrifice, and time in one's fantastic stroke. The reality, the social realm was hard, set codes and boundaries. We understand these limits and know what we have to move within the same familiar circles day in and day out. The fantasy, we can enter a totally new world with different codes and promise of adventure skirting the sexual and relief from boredom. The reality, society is fragmented and full of conflict. The fantasy, people can come together in mystical union of souls. I love it. The reality is death. Death cannot be brought back. The past cannot be changed. The fantasy, a sudden reversal of this intolerable fact. The reversal of this law. Never come too close to the place where you're actually expected to produce results, and never make the mistake of imagining that fantasy is always fantastical. What do you guys think about this one? Play to people's fantasies. And this has a lot to do with marketing, right? Marketing and advertising. How do you guys use this in your business?
I'm gonna say this one's definitely a challenge for me. It's just with how I've, with my specific upbringing, it's always speak the truth no matter what. I mean, that's, be a man of your word. So my imagination over the years has really shrunk. And so I even know how difficult the truth is. So I don't mind speaking the truth. And I'm even to my team members and clients that I'm speaking with. But the issue is no one wants to hear the fucking truth. That's when it comes down to it. So I know that it's actually personally hurt me by being extremely transparent, the truth. So I'm trying to learn to, it's not just avoiding the truth. I still want to make sure that I uphold that, but also sprinkle in a little bit of the fantasy at times to make it a little bit more enlightened for these individuals. Because as you mentioned, you know, unfortunately, life is boring and frustrating, and sometimes can just monotonous, and it sucks. Not a lot of people like that. So if the way that I am, if I'm just so clean cut and just tell the truth, well, no one wants to hear it. So it actually hurts me as an individual by doing that. So that's something I've realized, and that's one of my challenges. So that's a good one to remind myself of.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Alex. Tino, do you have something to say on this subject?
Yeah, I do actually. So first of all, thanks for having me. I got your messages, but I never really like tuned into it. So I appreciate you sending it to me. And I actually just started reading this like a couple weeks ago myself. So I'm definitely going to be attending all these. But for me, like the fantasy, as far as like the sales side of stuff, is it goes back to like painting the picture for the seller, right? So how we paint the fantasy, especially with people that are like in foreclosure, tax delinquent, stuff like that, is we help them paint the vision of how things are going to be after the sale's finished, right? So we say things like, hey, you know, let's just paint a picture really quick, Mr. Seller. Let's just imagine 7 days from now we close on your house. You no longer have to worry about making these payments. You get a cash, you know, you get a check for whatever the amount is that they want. Let's just imagine, like, put yourself in that perspective. How's that going to feel? What kind of weight is going to be lifted off your shoulders when we do close this deal? You get that check in your hand, and now you have no worries in the world. You can just go spend that money on whatever you need to spend it on. So that's how we spin it. And it's not really lying, but it is painting a fantasy that if they do go with us as a cash offer, that all of those stressors are going to be lifted off their shoulders.
100%.
Yeah, that's letting them create the fantasies. That's awesome.
Yeah, definitely. You know what? Yeah, because obviously, you know, when you're doing that negotiating, you're finding their pain points, and then you're turning it. You know, oh yeah, you're getting a million calls and letters. I bet it must be frustrating. You know, do you want that to end?
Yeah.
You know, this is the way to do it. And then with the last one, you know, do you want to take option A to solve your problem? Do you want to take option B to solve your problems? Either way is good for me.
Right.
100%. Yeah, you got to paint that picture. And yeah, I don't think it is. It's not being deceiving,
Right.
but it's not also 100% true as well. But that's a, you know, that's what you're just letting them create that in their minds.
Right. And I'm sure you guys all know this, but unless the idea comes from them, it feels like, you know, if I forget the saying, I always butcher it, but a man
Convinced against his will is of the same opinion still.
Yeah, I always mess that up, but that's the perfect saying, right? Like we can't sit there and jam it down their throats. They have to come up with the idea on their own. And so that's how we do it, is help paint that picture of my life is going to be so much better after I take this cash offer.
Right. Politics, right? Both of the candidates. Oh, yeah, everything's going to be great. You know, Joe Biden gets elected, the world's going to be great. Corona's going to go away. This, that, and the other. They paint this beautiful picture, and then same with the other side. Oh, and then they also work against that, your fantasies, and they actually work against your fears. Oh, Joe Biden becomes president. This is going to happen. Taxes are going to go up. This is bad. This is bad. This is bad. And so people, yeah, they use these for their for positive and for negative, and it works. This is how people's mentality works.
Love it.
Anybody else? Kelly, Elizabeth, got anything on these? Let's see.
Always just painting the picture. You have to paint the end result for them, and that's what I play off of. Or, you know, you have to.
Yeah, I liked the one about death. How many of us, you know, think that it's always, we could always go back. We could always go back and change, right? But that's not true. You know, if you neglect your body for 10 years, you can't go back and just change that. You can't reverse that. So, but a lot of us always think we can. Oh yeah, so as long, I'll just start going to the gym next year and it's going to be great. You know, 2021, I'm going to be fit, this, that, the other. it's fantasy, you know, and that's what they do, you know, and that's the advertising. Again, you see the gym ads, you know, a better you, and you always think you can do it. So anybody else have anything on this or any other thing that we've talked about today? The grass is always greener. That was a note that I put for this chapter. The grass is always greener. And again, MLMs are terrific with these types of things, you know, just you're going to be traveling, you're going to be doing this, and, you know, life is going to be green. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. Tino, nice having you, and Alex, and everybody else, all our other usuals. Thanks for coming out. Where are we for next week? 33 through. So I believe we have 2 chapters left. I'm sorry, 2 weeks left. We're going to finish this up before Christmas. And don't forget to be here. She's going to check on that. So don't forget to be here for the last one, because that's where we always give a book away to everybody who shows up. Again, even if you don't read it, show up, because especially with the 48 Laws of Power, we all have experience in all of these. And I love to hear your guys' opinions. I love when we get a great discussion coming in. We were a little bit lacking today because we took a week off, and things are easily forgettable in this world. So let's 1 second, and we will know what we have next week. 33 through. I will look at the same time, see if we could. Should I have this ready to go? All right. Mine's loading too. Maya won't show up. Here we go. In the meantime, while I'm looking this up, does anybody have a book that we should be diving into in 2021? We like books that are implementable, books that we can implement into our business and into our lives.
So I just got done reading The Power of Now. Has that been on the list, or is that something you guys have read before?
No, haven't even heard of it.
So that one I would highly recommend. It's actually a book that I need to go back and reread again. So it's just talking about being present, also understanding your conscious versus your unconscious mind, and how to understand it a little bit better, how are controlling your thoughts. And it's definitely something of, it's somewhat of a little woo-woo at times, but it's definitely something I think everybody should read. So I would highly recommend that. It's called The Power of Now. Anybody else read that? Yeah.
All right. Great. I'll check it out. So if you guys have anything, post it. Join our group. Join our group on Instagram. Join our group on Facebook, and share the books that you like. Share your posts, and let's grow this. We are going to go chapters 33 through 40 for next week, and then we're going to finish off the final 8 laws of power on December 18th. So next Friday, December 11th, read through chapter 40. And thanks for showing up, and I'll see you guys next week.
Thanks, guys.
Oh, excellent. Thanks, everybody.
Thank
you.